The saga continues. Today we are carrying on with this guest room renovation. If you haven't seen part one, I will link it. I don't know which side it will show up on, but it'll be linked up there and in the description below for you. Go and catch up with that one, then pop back here and check out what we're doing today. It's time to paint the floor and it's time to furnish and finish and generally do all the fun bits. We're ready to paint a floor. There isn't gonna be so much time-lapse stuff in this video. Oh my sweet summer child, she had no idea how wrong she was. The majority of this video is gonna be entirely time-lapse because I am an idiot and I dropped a massive bollock when it came to filming this video, and I've really only got footage of certain things, and I missed a whole load of things that I should have been filming, and I didn't explain a whole load of things that I should have been explaining and talking about. So welcome to my first voiceover, born solely out of necessity because I did a terrible job at filming what I should have been filming. So here we are, my first ever voiceover. I'm super excited. Anyway, let's actually get into the time lapse. So painting the floor, right? This was back in June of 2020. And you can see here that I'm just going around. I'm making sure I've got all the tiny bits of dust and wood chips and everything like that off the floor, being really, really careful to pay attention to detail. And then I am priming the floor with a Dulux floor primer. There's a couple of reasons for priming it. Predominantly, I wanted to seal all the knots. The floor is really, really uneven in this room. It's all original floorboards from when the house was originally built almost 200 years ago. So it's very, very uneven and very wobbly and very knotty wood that they used, which is great. I love that. It gives it so much character, but it just means that I want to seal them and stop them being able to like peek through the paint as much as possible. So I'm using a primer. The other reason for using a primer, obviously, is that it will make the paint job itself a lot more durable and it'll last a lot longer, because I am not trying to be the person that has to repaint their floors every 6 months. And this is, now that this is a finished room, it is quite high traffic. I am in here several days every week and filming stuff, and there's cats in here, and you know, it's a guest room as well, so eventually when the world is normal again and we can have guests come to stay, there will be potentially 2 or 3 people at any one time in this room. So I really wanted the room to be I really wanted the floor to be durable so that I didn't have to worry so much about having to repaint once a year, because I really just like CBA, you know, like I cannot be asked. I'm not doing it, sorry. So that's kind of my thought process behind priming it. And I filmed all of this and was like, I remember at the time thinking like, oh my God, I'm so good at this. I'm so good at this filming malarkey. And then for like the next 6 months, whenever I was doing work on this guest room, I just didn't even think to break out the camera. I was just so unmotivated to like film anything, and I went like AWOL for a few months anyway there, as regular watchers will know. So that was that really. And then I'm moving on to the first coat of proper floor paint. Again, this is a Dulux product. It was just one that we were able to get locally, so I didn't have to wait around ordering it online. It doesn't require a primer technically, but like I said, I've got my reasons for priming as well, and I'm just cutting in with a small brush. I'm not being particularly careful about the woodwork or anything, because at this point I hadn't painted the woodwork, so it just needed a freshen up anyway. I'm using a foam roller to actually paint, because more than anything I just wanted it to have a really nice, smooth, professional finish to it, because although the wood is really like wibbly wobbly underneath it all, I still really wanted the decorating to look really nice and professional in the end. So I went with a foam roller, and I had a great time. And to be honest, even in socks, if I don't end up on wiki feet after this time lapse, I will be sorely disappointed. So someone better get on that. And then 24 hours later, moving on, 24 hours later, I came back and I did a second coat. of the floor paint. I only did 2 coats in the end because with the primer I actually got the level of coverage that I was looking for pretty quickly, and you can still see the texture of the wood through the paint, which I was really thrilled about. So I just did the 2 coats. I could have done more. There I am measuring up. I got so distracted. I measured up for a radiator cover while I was in the middle of painting the floor because I just couldn't help myself. But yeah, so I can only apologise really for the fact that I didn't film everything for this second part of this room that I should have done. But I'm really pleased with how everything's turned out, and I think the floor in particular might actually be my favourite part, to be honest. I think it looks really, really good. I've always wanted painted floorboards, and the fact that they came out just so well is mwah. I am excited. So then we are jumping forward a little bit in time, and here I am with the blinds. I got these from 24/7 Blinds. A link is in the description below, and they are the Eco Wood Venetian in just plain white. And I just really like how simple and beachy they look, and I paired them with a voile panel, which I enjoyed. And then I'm moving on to a little bit of furnishing and finishing touches. The vines and the plants that you can see hanging down, that is my driftwood and plant decor that I made. It was homemade. I could maybe do a video about that if anyone's interested. It's super simple though. And I'm just installing these IKEA wall lights, the name of which, if I knew it, I probably wouldn't even be able to pronounce it anyway, so it'll be written somewhere. I did a little dance because I was so thrilled that I managed to install them myself. The other thing I totally forgot to film, actually, which is hilarious, because it's like a big thing in the room, obviously you can see, is the blue velvet sofa bed. I can't believe I didn't film anything about that. From it showing up to me putting it in the bedroom, like I was just like, nah, just get it upstairs, I can't be asked. And then one thing I knew I wanted to do in this room was to have like a reclaimed, like a rustic wood shelf, which can double as like bedside storage whenever the sofa bed is being used for guests, but it can also double as somewhere for me to hold cute little knickknacks as a filming backdrop. So this piece of wood actually was from when Dan laid some concrete for our new shed. We had to replace a shed a few months ago, and he did a concrete slab so that it was more stable. And this was part of the concrete form that he made in order to do the pour. And I just thought the knots and the texture were really nice. And I know it's not a fancy bit of wood, but it varnished up really, really well. And I used Ronseal gloss varnish for that, and it's so satisfying. I love that little before and after. It's great. With it being like really pale and pasty, and then all of a sudden it's this lovely rich tone. It's great. And I cut little notches in it so that the cables from the IKEA wall lights sit within it, so that the shelf itself could sit flush to the wall. The Ronseal varnish that I used had a recoat time of 6 hours, so you can see it's dark outside when I'm doing the second coat here. And I didn't sand in between coats, and that was deliberate, and it was basically the instructions on the tin were to do 2 coats 6 hours apart and to then sand and do a final coat. So that's exactly what I did, and it worked out brilliantly. Like, the shelf looks fantastic. It's so nice and smooth. It feels really nice, and the varnish did a really great job at bringing out all those lovely warm wood tones that I wanted in it. So I'm absolutely thrilled. I mean, look at those knots. They're just gorgeous. It's a really lovely piece of wood. I know it's a simple piece of wood, but it's a really lovely piece of wood. So the next day, after it had the 2 coats, I just gave it a light sand with some fine paper, gave it a rub down with a damp rag, get all the dust off, and then I moved on to the final coat of varnish. And that was really all I had to do with it. You can see here, like when I'm flipping it over, that the underside isn't currently varnished. I did do 1 coat of varnish underneath in the end, because Dan pointed out that if you're lying in the sofa bed and you look up, you're going to be able to see the underside of the shelf, and I didn't want it to look really weird compared to the rest of the shelf. So I did do 1 coat of varnish on the underneath. So that's really that, to be honest. And then for the final coat, I'm using a smaller brush purely because the brush I was using was still wet from being cleaned. So, and I'm impatient. So I was like, sod it. Let's just use a different brush. And I just put a really nice thick coat on. And I went through and I made sure to remove all the little drippies and all the cat hairs that sat in it. And I was absolutely delighted with that, as you can see. And then it came to mounting it to the wall. These brackets we just got from our local hardware store. And they were originally quite a shiny, like gunmetal grey. And we just spray painted them black. And I'm just drilling some very shallow pilot holes just to prevent the wood from splitting, just in case I manage to cock it up somehow. And then I'm mounting them at 30 centimeters from each end, and then that one in the middle obviously is flat bang in the middle of the length of wood, and it worked beautifully. And they spray painted really nicely, and the spray paint didn't crack or anything when we mounted it to the wall. You can also see that the guest room is full of stuff, and that is because it kind of became a bit of a dumping ground. So I then had to spend 2 days like tidying it up and organizing everything that I had dumped in here over the previous 6 months, which was really frustrating, but you know, these things happen. Mounting the shelf, really easy. Obviously, usually you would check for wires before you drill into a wall under any circumstances. However, this is the gable end of the house and it is a chimney. And there is no wire in there, and I know that, so we just went for it. But check your wires, usually, okay? Check for them. Also, the funny thing is, we used a spirit level, and when I watched this back, I was like, oh, it looks a tiny bit crooked, but that's just because the house itself is crooked. It's almost 200 years old, so of course it's crooked, you know, like, whatever. But I absolutely love this shelf. I am so inspired by it. I really want to do, like, rustic reclaimed wood shelves in just about every room of the house now, so I'm probably going to bore myself to death with that. And then it came time to style it, and obviously I haven't got all the little knickknacks that I want yet. I'm waiting for something to arrive, but I just went for a plant. I've got my little Be Fucking Nice print that I got printed on, what was it, Snapfish or Photobox or someone like that. I just made that up in Photoshop. My tiny vintage bottle of Jack that's older than Methuselah, and my little Pride and Prejudice print, and my point shoes as well. And then we moved this dresser in. This dresser was originally in the master bedroom when my mum was living in the house, and she obviously couldn't take the dresser into the caravan. So she said that we could make use of it for the time being. So the dresser is where we store all of our camera equipment and stuff for when people come and stay, like guest trinkets and things like that. So that is that. one room, at least, is finally finished. It's only taken me almost a year. It's been nearly a year since I started in this room because Mum let me work on it before we swapped. So it's been a long ass time coming to actually have this room finished. I've still got some changes that I want to make. I'm thinking of painting a portion of that wall blue to match the actual back wall. And I want some different trinkets for the back of my filming setup because I just do, and I just think it would be cute, and not wrong with that. Hope you enjoyed my first ever voiceover, by the way, because I realised upon editing this video that I did a god awful job at filming it and didn't explain anything and didn't film half the important shit that needed to be filmed. So I apologise. And hopefully next time I'll do a better job. I think the trick is to just film everything, really, isn't it? Like, even when you don't think you're gonna need it, film it. However, there we go. Guest room is finished. I am gonna make one more video about this room, and it is gonna be specifically a guest room tour where I talk about all the furniture and the little bits and pieces and where I got things and, you know, all that kind of jazz. So stick around if you're interested for something like that. If you've seen something that you want to know where I got it, then it will all be in another upcoming video. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Hit that ring bell button to be notified every time I upload a new video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! He's just a little cutie. Just a little cutie with so many good friends. Anyway. Later.